As tensions between India and Pakistan surged following the April 22nd terrorist attack in Indian-administered Kashmir, the world witnessed a rapid military escalation that brought both countries to the brink. With the US brokered ceasefire now in place, the focus has turned to diplomacy, accountability, and the future of long-standing frameworks, including the Indus Water Treaty and the Simla Agreement. Joining me today is His Excellency Ambassador Asim Iftikhar Ahmad, Permanent Representative of Pakistan to the United Nations. Ambassador, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Ambassador, India accused Pakistan-based groups of carrying out the April 22nd attack in Kashmir. Your government condemned the violence, but what concrete steps is Pakistan taking internally and internationally to ensure non-state actors are held accountable and that the territory is not used for cross-border violence?
Thank you so much. I think you mentioned diplomacy in your initial remarks, and this is where I believe that this issue could have been addressed in a way that would be consistent with the international law and the legal frameworks in which the members of the international community work. So this was an incident, as you mentioned, a terrorist incident that took place in the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. The entire international community, including the Security Council, including Pakistan itself, condemned this incident. And now there was a question that there is a need to bring the perpetrators of this incident to account. You're talking about accountability. Now, what are the means that the international community has prescribed for bringing to justice the perpetrators of such accounts? Now you need to identify, first of all, who committed this incident. You need to have a process which is based on evidence. You need to have credible investigations, and then on the basis of that and the provisions of international law, you can proceed with the accountability process. That's our view. We expressed that view. We said from the very beginning Pakistan had nothing to do with this incident. We had nothing to gain from this incident. We also know that there is this very familiar and now very well known to us, this playbook of India, that whenever such incident happens, there is this barrage of allegations without any evidence, without any credible investigation, and directed towards Pakistan. We cannot accept such a situation. We have seen this in the past. I think there has to be a more credible, more responsive approach to these issues based on international law. That's why you said, despite the fact that we had nothing to do with this incident, we offered that, let's have an investigation which can be considered independent, which is transparent, which is neutral, which will have that level of acceptability that is usually required in such incidents. Otherwise, how do you believe that you're going to bring accountability? So we offered this. India, unfortunately, for its own reasons, maybe they have something to hide, they did not respond to this. The other members of the international community were considering this as an option to ensure that there will be a credible investigation. The Secretary General was also talking about that, but they did not wait for it. 2 weeks after that incident happened, and no evidence yet after 14-15 days, and they go ahead and commit this aggression against Pakistan. So how do you believe that we are going to accept this blame and this persistent allegation that this is linked to in some way to Pakistan? That's not the case.
Let me move to the military response and the right of self-defense. On May 6, India launched strikes it described as counter-terror operations. Pakistan responded with its own military actions. From your government's perspective, how are these actions justified under international law, particularly the right of self-defense and proportional retaliation?
So I think your question says it all. You mentioned, and India has acknowledged, that the pretext that they used to carry out these attacks was the so-called counter-terrorism. Now, as I was talking earlier, and you mentioned international law, there is no provision in international law. There is nothing there in the Security Council resolutions. Even the press statement that the Security Council issued on 25th of April condemning this incident, it says very clearly the actions, the legitimate actions that member states can take to counter terrorism, they have to conform to the UN Charter, to international law, international human rights law, humanitarian law. So it is very evident when they say that they have carried out because of this reason, this action itself, this action of aggression against Pakistan, it is against international law. It is against UN Charter. They violated the territorial integrity and sovereignty of Pakistan by carrying out this aggression. So it is very obvious, it is natural. And now when you're talking of self-defense, because when you defend yourself against an aggression, it is very clearly mentioned in the UN Charter, specifically Article 51, that member states have the right to defend themselves. So it's purely in accordance with international law. Our response, which was proportionate, but in accordance with international law, as against to illegal aggression by India.
How does Islamabad view the US brokered maintained ceasefire? Do we see it as a meaningful diplomatic breakthrough or merely a pause in hostilities?
We have welcomed that. You've seen that we were already welcoming and in fact encouraging and supporting all such efforts from our friends from the UN Secretary General to try to de-escalate the situation. I believe that the initial message perhaps was not that clear and unambiguous towards India to step back. They did not listen to those calls, and they put us in such a situation where an aggression was committed and then we had to respond. And that brought us to a very serious situation where the tensions were very high and it could have gone anywhere. So in that context, I believe that the role played by the US, very significant, welcomed. Other countries also contributed. So we have this ceasefire today, just a while ago. It has been extended. The two DG of military operations, they have extended. This is a good sign, but at the same time, I think as you mentioned, whether this is going to be permanent or is just a pause, because I'm now referring to the address of Prime Minister Modi to the people of India, which I think it was unfortunate the way he put things there, and also alluding that this is just a pause and there might be something. I believe such comments are not helpful. They are counterproductive. A ceasefire is in place. Pakistan is fully committed, and we believe that we now need to move beyond that to what the international community has suggested, that now that there is ceasefire, we need to move to other things to try to have a permanent peace and dialogue between the two countries.
Now, let me move to a more humanitarian angle, the civilian impact and humanitarian consideration. As with all military engagements near the line of control, civilians on both sides have been caught in the crossfire. What measure is Pakistan taking to protect its civilian population? And how does your government propose deconfliction mechanisms to prevent future harm for non-combatants?
Yeah, this is at the core of, at the heart of everything. You know, whenever there is a conflict, an armed conflict, civilians come under harm. That's why we have the international law. That's why you have the international humanitarian law and the Geneva Conventions. So this is unfortunate that a country is claiming that it is undertaking actions so-called against terrorists, while actually attacking structures and facilities which are purely civilian in nature, nothing to do with terrorism. So the initial step itself was targeting civilians. We've lost more than 30 innocent civilians in these operations, and more than 50 injured in the first phase of these attacks. So there is obviously an impact on civilians. our response, as was declared openly, was against military targets. We never targeted civilians. But you are right, when there is shelling across the line of control, for example, the civilians come in the way of harm. We do not want that. That's why we never wanted this to come to a stage where you will have hostilities breaking out and will put the civilians in danger one way or the other. So our position has been very clear, and then obviously then there are humanitarian aspects that come into play. You know that there were a large number of commercial air flights which were airborne in the skies at that time when India launched its operation. It was like putting all those international commercial flights in harm's way. So these were I would say, very irresponsible actions that really put the civilian lives in danger.
Staples of bilateral relations between India and Pakistan include the Indus Water Treaty and the Simla Agreement of 1972. India has announced the suspension of the Indus Water Treaty, and Pakistan has signaled it may re-evaluate the Simla Agreement, both of which have historically helped to manage bilateral tensions. How does your government plan to respond to the potential politicization of shared resources like water? And does this signal a broader shift towards seeking multilateral engagement through institutions such as the United Nations as traditional bilateral mechanism falter?
So this is an important question, but first of all, let me clarify that we have not suspended the Simla Agreement. We have stated that there are options that we can consider, but India, in the case of the Indus Water Treaty, they have gone ahead, they have actually announced this decision, they have conveyed this formally to Pakistan that they are putting this into abeyance. Now here comes the important question. How can a country which claims to be a responsible member of the international community go ahead and take this step, which is in total violation of international law, in violation of the Vienna Convention on the Law of the Treaties, in violation of the treaty itself, because the Indus Water Treaty does not have any provision that allows for such putting into abeyance or putting in suspension this treaty. So this action is totally illegal, but again, there are at the back of this, there are political and strategic objectives which are at play. So you remember that in 2019, when one such incident, Pulwama, happened in February, 6 months down the road, they used that as a pretext to take those unilateral actions vis-a-vis the status, the internationally recognized disputed status of Kashmir. This time they have utilized this, again abused this incident that happened, this terrorist incident, to go ahead and put into suspension the Indus Water Treaty. It is important to recall here that for some time India has been questioning this treaty, and they have been raising objections to various aspects. But the treaty does not provide for unilateral suspension. There are mechanisms within the treaty where you can discuss, you can negotiate, but everything has to be with the agreement of both parties. So I would say that there is a fundamental difference in the approach of our two countries. We want to follow the international law, we want to respect the bilateral agreements and obligations that are there, but on the other hand, there is this stark disrespect for the bilateral treaties on the one hand, and also a clear violation of international law and obligations in the case of India. So you violate the Indus Water Treaty, you are violating the bilateral and the international aspects. You are not ready to accept and implement the resolutions of the Security Council on Jammu and Kashmir. So that's another aspect. So you are taking actions, claiming them to be counterterrorism actions, but again violating international law at every step of it. There is a stark difference.
Finally, Ambassador, looking beyond the immediate crisis, what is Pakistan's long-term vision for peaceful coexistence with India? Under what conditions would your government consider reforming or reshaping diplomatic ties or engaging in a structured peace dialogue?
Yeah, this is the core of the problems that we are confronting. So this is about long-term peace and stability. We have said this, we have maintained this for a long time now, and the international community has also, acknowledged what we've been saying, that for us to have durable peace and stability, need to address the bigger issues that are bedeviling, this friendly cooperative relationship between our two countries. And if you look at the wider canvas, you see very clearly Jammu and Kashmir is the dispute that has been there for decades, which is unresolved, which is a very unjust situation as regards the Kashmiri people are concerned. They have awaited for their right to self-determination for decades, which has been denied to them by an illegal occupation. When we see this situation, every couple of years, we are back to this confrontation and this escalation, and then something happens and you go back. But you're not actually going back to normalcy. This situation unresolved, which is there, it continues to be there. That's why we are saying that there needs to be a dialogue. There needs to be a way, a proper political diplomatic way of addressing the situation. And I'm glad that, after all that has happened, all our friends, including the US, many other countries, the Secretary General, they have welcomed the ceasefire on one side, but they have, very importantly, they have emphasized that it is time for the two countries to sit down, to come, be on the table, give diplomacy and talks a chance to address the wider issues. This is what the US has said.
Is the stage ready for such an undertaking? Because I know India is steadfast in its position that this is a vital issue and it should not be escalated to the United Nations.
Pakistan is very clear on this. Yes, India has its own problems. They have been trying to avert this problem from addressing it either bilaterally or internationally. I think this is an issue that they need to really come up with a clear answer, because the international community is now very clear. Everyone is saying and acknowledging that if we want to have durable peace and stability in the region, we have to address our bilateral issues. So Pakistan is ready. What India has been trying to do is to, on Kashmir, which is purely an international issue, it is on the agenda of the UN and the Security Council. It is an international dispute. They have tried to internalize it and to present it as something which is internal to India, which is totally wrong, which is against the resolutions of the UN Security Council. No one accepts that position, but what it has done is that it has prolonged the resolution of the Kashmir dispute. This whole scenario, this crisis that evolved and then led us to this situation today, and these calls supporting the two countries to come back to the table, to re-establish dialogue and to try to resolve the outstanding issues, including Kashmir, between the two countries through peaceful means, is a important message, I would say, not only for Pakistan but more specifically for India, that it is time to realize that this issue needs to be resolved, and I would add, has to be resolved in accordance with the international legitimacy, the resolutions that are there, and above all, the wishes of the Kashmiri people.
Just a quick follow-up. India has consistently rejected third-party mediation, including offers from Secretary General of the United Nations, while Pakistan has welcomed and even invited visits to the region. India, however, shut the door on such mediation. We now see, after the US mediation and the immediate ceasefire, that the door may be opening. Do you think a third-party mediator could now rise from this crisis? Would it be the US, Europe, the UK, Saudi Arabia, or the Emirates? We are hearing many names. And what about the neutral site mentioned by President Trump, where the two countries might begin direct negotiations?
As far as Pakistan is concerned, we are clear, the door is open. Let me state that the usual course of action in case of many situations is that you have this bilateral dialogue. Okay, We used to have bilateral dialogue. There was a composite comprehensive dialogue between the two countries, which again India unilaterally suspended this dialogue over 10 years ago. There is no dialogue, bilateral dialogue taking place between our two countries. So on the one hand, India tells our common friends that we will discuss this bilaterally and resolve things bilaterally with Pakistan, while knowing fully well that there is no bilateral dialogue. So what to do? You know, there are so many situations. We are sitting here in New York in United Nations when the parties are not able to agree how to move forward. So there are others who come in, that is called third party, facilitation. It could be in the form of mediation, other ways like good offices of the Secretary General. Pakistan has always supported and welcomed these efforts. It's India that has not supported. So yeah, I think there are questions that India needs to answer, that they are not ready to engage bilaterally, and also at the same time not ready to welcome any such facilitation role by our common friends, not even by the Secretary General. What does it want? I mean, what kind of message is this to the international community? As to what will then take us forward? If we are saying that we should resolve these issues, we should address these issues peacefully, then it has to be within a certain framework. So I think these are these questions which our friends in India need to answer with more clarity. But there is this clear expectation among the international community now that there would be progress in terms of this dialogue.
Thank you, Ambassador Ahmed, for this insightful interview and for your time. I know you have a very busy schedule and I won't keep you longer. I do hope we can continue this conversation another time.
Thank you. I really appreciate this conversation.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.